The desperate call. The orbital cities of Lintara burned against the night sky, their flames visible even from the planet's surface where Elder Tainari watched with hollow eyes. Once resplendent spiral structures that housed millions, they now resembled dying stars, plummeting through the atmosphere trailing debris and smoke. The scourge had arrived only 7 days ago, but already half their world lay in ruins. The outer colonies have gone silent, reported Commander Savax, her voice barely audible over the emergency sirens. Proxima Station, the Kelnar outpost, even the mining facilities on Draven's belt all destroyed. Tinari didn't respond immediately. As the eldest member of the Lintari Council of Elders, she had witnessed 3 centuries of her species' golden age of exploration and prosperity. Now, in what should have been her final peaceful years, she was watching it all end. And the Galactic Council? Any response to our distress signals? She finally asked, though she already knew the answer. Savax's face darkened. They've enacted Protocol 7. No interference with scourge incursions beyond established defense perimeters. They're containing us, Tainari whispered. Sacrificing our systems to protect their own. The Lintari were not a warrior species. Their crystalline bodies evolved under the gentle radiation of a binary star system, excelled at energy manipulation and synthesis, making them unparalleled engineers and terraformers. The Galactic Council had valued them for their ability to transform dead worlds into habitable paradises. But against the scourge, a hive-minded silicon-based predatory species that consumed all technology and energy in its path, their evolutionary advantages meant nothing. The emergency bunker shook as another orbital defense platform crashed somewhere in the southern hemisphere. The lights flickered, dimmed, and only emergency power prevented total darkness. We have perhaps 3 days before they breach the planetary shield, said Kale, the young chief archivist who had remained silent until now. 5 at most before total planetary consumption. Tinari turned to the young archivist. You've been unusually quiet, Kale. In my experience, that means you're contemplating something either brilliant or suicidal. Kale hesitated, then approached the central console. His crystalline form shimmered with nervous energy. I've been researching in the Forbidden Archives. The room went silent. The Forbidden Archives contained knowledge deemed too dangerous by the Galactic Council. Technological concepts, historical events, and species records that were sealed away for the greater stability of interstellar society. That's a capital offense, Savax said automatically, though her tone suggested she was beyond caring about council regulations at this point. I found references to another species, Kyle continued, ignoring the comment. One that fought the scourge before and won. One that the council fears more than any other threat. Tainari's crystalline form clouded with doubt. The Vex Collective? The Quantum Harmonics? Humans, Kale said simply. The word hung in the air like a curse. Even Tainari, with all her centuries of knowledge, felt a cold resonance through her crystalline matrix at the mention of that name. Humans are extinct, Savax said flatly. They destroyed themselves in the Terminus War eons ago. Kale shook his head. That's what the council records claim, but the Forbidden Archives tell a different story. They didn't die out. They withdrew. After the council betrayed them during the first Scourge invasion, humans retreated to their home system and established the Sol exclusion zone. He projected a star chart from his central core. A vast region of space, spanning thousands of light years, pulsed red on the display. Warning symbols and council quarantine markers surrounded it. No ships enter, no signals escape. The council maintains a fleet at the perimeter, just to ensure nothing comes out, Kyle explained. But the archives contain an emergency frequency, a direct line to Earth to be used only in species extinction scenarios. The council would execute us all just for discussing this, Tinari whispered. The council has already abandoned us, Savax countered, her military pragmatism cutting through the fear. What do we have to lose? The bunker shook again, more violently this time. Dust and small crystal shards fell from the ceiling. On the monitors, they could see 3 massive, Scourge harvester ships entering the upper atmosphere, their obsidian surfaces absorbing all light, leaving only shadow. How do we know humans would even help us? Tinari asked. If what you say is true and they were betrayed by the Council, why would they aid a Council species now? Kyle's form brightened slightly. Because according to the archives, before they retreated, the humans made a promise. They told the younger species that if the Scourge ever returned, if genuine innocence were threatened with extinction, they could call. And humans would answer? Savax asked, skepticism evident in her tone. The archives weren't clear on what exactly would answer, Kyle admitted. But whatever it is, it terrified the Council enough to bury all evidence of human existence and forbid any contact. Tainari moved to the window, watching as the Scourge ships descended through clouds turned red by the burning cities. Their civilization had perhaps hours, not days, left. Do it, she said finally. Send the signal. Kale's form brightened with nervous energy as he interfaced with the ancient communications array buried beneath the bunker. Salvaged from ruins predating Lintari civilization, the technology had been sealed away as prohibited by Council edict. But now, as crystalline fingers danced across alien controls, forgotten protocols awakened. The signal format is unusual, Kyle muttered. It's not standard subspace. It's something older. Quantum entanglement with gravitic amplification. Will it reach them? Savax asked, watching the Scourge ships grow larger on the monitors. It should reach everywhere and everyone simultaneously, Kale replied, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. The transmission isn't limited by light speed or conventional physics. With a final command, Kale activated the signal. The ancient technology hummed to life, its power requirements instantly draining half their remaining energy reserves. The message was simple, crafted according to the protocols found in the archives. To Sol System, humanity's cradle, Lintari, civilization faces extinction by Scourge forces. The Council has enacted Protocol 7. We invoke the ancient promise. We call for the Guardians. The signal pulsed once, sending ripples through subspace that no modern sensors could detect. Then the transmitter went dark, its components melting into slag from the energy surge. Now what? Savax asked. Now we wait, Tainari replied. And hope that whoever or whatever answers still remembers the promise made long ago. Days passed. The Scourge methodically dismantled the Lintari's orbital defenses and began landing ground forces. Crystal cities that had stood for millennia were consumed, their energy and technology feeding the ever-growing Scourge biomass. The remaining Lintari retreated deeper underground, into ancient caverns where their species had first evolved. On the 7th day after sending the signal, as hope dwindled to its final embers, something changed. The constant background radiation that permeated the galaxy, the cosmic microwave background remnant of the universe's birth, shifted frequency by 1/1,000,000%. Most species and their technology wouldn't notice such a minuscule change, but the crystalline Lintari, sensitive to the most subtle energy fluctuations, felt it like a thunderclap. Something's coming, Tinari whispered, her form resonating with the strange new frequency. Something vast. In high orbit, where the Scourge command ship coordinated the planetary harvest, sensors detected an anomaly. Not a ship approaching through hyperspace or warp. Not energy weapons powering up or missiles. Incoming. Simply a void, an absence where space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a perfect sphere of absolute darkness against the starfield. The Scourge, for the first time since their arrival, ceased all operations. Their hive intelligence, spread across thousands of vessels and millions of drones, focused entirely on the anomaly. Threats were calculated, attack vectors plotted, escape routes prepared, and then the void spoke, not with sound, not with radio waves or subspace transmissions, but directly into the quantum substrate of reality itself. The message propagated instantly across the planet, heard by Scourge and Lintari alike, vibrating through crystal and silicon with perfect clarity. We remember the promise. We have heard your call. Judgment approaches. In the underground bunker, now crowded with refugees, Tainari felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Hope. But it was tempered with a new emotion, one unfamiliar to her peaceful species. Dread. What have we awakened? She whispered to Kale, who stood transfixed by the sensor readings. The young archivist's crystalline form pulsed with a mixture of awe and terror. The archive spoke of humanity's guardians, but I never truly understood what that meant until now. What are they? Savax demanded, military training unable to hide her fear. Not what we thought, Kyle replied softly. The humans didn't just withdraw after the betrayal. They evolved, they transcended, and what we've called isn't human anymore. Above them, the void began to expand. The awakening, the void expanded to 50 kilometers in diameter, a perfect sphere of nothingness that defied all natural laws. Light bent around it. Radiation ceased to exist within its boundaries. Even gravity itself seemed to flow differently near its edges, creating ripples in space-time that distorted sensor readings and navigation systems. The Scourge, driven by collective intelligence and unhampered by fear, responded with overwhelming force. Hundreds of vessels redirected energy to weapon systems, launching salvos that would have vaporized planets. Energy beams, quantum disruptors, and antimatter missiles all disappeared into the darkness without effect. The void remained unchanged, silent and patient. Then from within its center something emerged. Not a fleet, not a weapon platform, but a single vessel. It was small by comparison to the massive Scourge harvesters, perhaps only 1 kilometer in length. Its hull was midnight black, but somehow different from the void that birthed it, textured with geometric patterns that shifted and flowed like liquid mathematics. In the bunker below, Kyle's instruments struggled to analyze the visitor. It's impossible, he muttered, interfacing directly with the sensors. The hull is composed of matter and energy simultaneously, quantum superposition on a macro scale. Is it a ship or a weapon? Savax demanded, military training asserting itself. It's both and neither, Cal replied. According to these readings, it's as much an idea as a physical object. The strange vessel hung motionless before the Scourge armada. No communication was attempted. No warnings were issued. It simply existed, observing, the Scourge, interpreting. This stillness as weakness launched a second wave of attacks. This time the vessel responded. It didn't fire weapons or raise shields in any conventional sense. Instead, reality itself seemed to hiccup around the nearest Scourge ships. One moment they existed, massive war machines bristling with weaponry. The next they were simply elsewhere, not destroyed, not damaged, just removed from that point, in space-time. Did you see that? Savax whispered, watching the tactical display as 30 Scourge capital ships vanished simultaneously. They weren't destroyed, Kyle said, voice trembling. They were relocated. I'm detecting quantum displacement signatures consistent with targeted space-time manipulation. Before they could process this information, a new signal reached their receivers, not from orbit, but emanating from within, their own bunker. Screens flickered, showing only static at first, then resolving into a figure. It appeared humanoid, but the similarities to ancient human records ended there. Its form seemed to be composed of interlocking geometric shapes, constantly flowing and reshaping while maintaining a roughly bipedal silhouette. Where a face should be, there was only a smooth surface occasionally rippling with complex equations that appeared and disappeared too quickly to read. I am observer, the figure said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through the speakers. You activated the beacon. You invoked the promise. Tainari stepped forward, her crystalline form reflecting the strange light from the screen. We did. Our civilization faces extinction. The Galactic Council abandoned us. We had nowhere else to turn. The observer's form shifted, angles becoming curves, equations growing more complex. The Galactic Council. Yes, we remember this political construct. Something about the casual dismissal of the galaxy's supreme authority, an organization that had ruled for 50,000 years, sent chills through Tainari's crystalline matrix. The aggressors you face are designated Scourge, silicon-based hive intelligence, energy consumers, technology assimilators. The observer's form rippled. We encountered them 12,483 standard years ago. We studied them. We understood them. We contained them. Contained? Savax interrupted. They've consumed 17 systems in the past decade alone. An oversight being corrected, Observer replied with mechanical precision. The containment protocols were designed to be maintained by the Council. They were neglected. Kyle pushed forward. The archive said humans withdrew after being betrayed. What really happened? What did you become? The Observer was silent for a moment, its form becoming momentarily still. We were soulborn, Earth-evolved, Homo sapiens. When we encountered the Scourge, we offered assistance to the early Council. We contained the threat. In return, the Council attempted to contain us. Why? Tainari asked. Fear. Our methods were deemed excessive. Our technologies unnatural. Our potential unlimited. The Observer's form rippled again. Rather than engage in conflict, we withdrew. We chose evolution over destruction. Above them, in orbit, the strange vessel continued its silent work. Scourge ships were systematically being removed from reality, not destroyed, causing no debris, no radiation, no death throes, simply relocated elsewhere in the universe. What are you doing to them? Kyle asked, watching the sensor readings in fascination. Relocation to designated containment zones, uninhabited regions of space prepared specifically for Scourge remediation. You're not killing them? Savax asked. Bewildered. Unnecessary. Inefficient. The Scourge serve a purpose in the cosmic ecosystem. They convert and recycle. They evolve technology through assimilation. They are not evil, merely incompatible with carbon-silicon civilizations. The clinical detachment and Observer's explanation disturbed Tainari more than any display of aggression would have. This wasn't the passionate defense of justice she had hoped for. It was something colder, more absolute. And what happens now? She asked quietly. Full containment protocols will be re-established. Your civilization will be preserved. The promise fulfilled. Observer's form began to dissolve into equations. But first, the Council must answer for their negligence. Across the galaxy, in the vast geometric structure that housed the Galactic Council, alarms blared at unprecedented volume. The central chamber, a massive amphitheater where representatives from 12,000 species gathered, was in chaos. Emergency protocols activated as every single monitoring system simultaneously detected anomalies. The Council's supreme executor, a gaseous entity contained in an ornate environment suit, floated to the central podium. Order, we must have order. To address this crisis. Gradually, the panic subsided into a tense, expectant silence. The executor's environment suit changed color from alarmed red to authoritative blue. Our long-range sensors have detected an incursion in the Lintari system. The Scourge containment force has been removed. Murmurs spread through the chamber until the executor continued. But the greater concern is what replaced them. We have confirmed signatures matching those in historical threat file Omega. The chamber erupted again, this time in terror rather than confusion. File Omega was the Council's designation for humanity's guardian entities, being so advanced and potentially destructive that knowledge of their existence was restricted to the highest echelons of Council leadership. Impossible, shouted the Myrn ambassador, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. The containment grid around Sol system is still operational. Nothing could have escaped. Nothing escaped, came a new voice. Calm, precise, and terrifyingly familiar. On the central platform beside the executor, Observer's form materialized. The Council chamber fell into absolute silence. We never left. Observer continued. The Sol exclusion zone was not to keep us contained. It was to keep you out. The executor's environment suit paled to ghostly white. How is this possible? This chamber is protected by quantum isolation fields and temporal barriers. These concepts are primitive, Observer replied. We exist beyond your understanding of space, time, and matter. We have always been here, watching, waiting. What do you want? The executor asked, fear evident despite the mechanical translation. Accountability. The scourge containment protocols we established were abandoned. You sacrificed the Lintari and 17 other species rather than honor your obligation. Throughout the chamber, counselors turned to each other in confusion. Most knew nothing of any containment protocols or obligations to humans. Such knowledge had been buried millennia ago. That agreement was made 50,000 years ago, the executor protested. None alive remember it. We remember, Observer said simply. And accountability must be maintained for order to exist. At that moment, on planets throughout Council space, identical observers appeared in government centers, broadcast stations, and population hubs. The message they delivered was always the same. We are the guardians of Sol. We have awakened. The promise has been invoked. The compact has been broken. The scourge will be contained. The council will be reformed. A new covenant will be established. Back in the Lintari bunker, Tinari watched reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Council space was in panic as humanity's creations, or descendants, made themselves known everywhere simultaneously. What have we done? She whispered to Kale. The young archivist's form pulsed with mixed emotions. We survived, but I fear the galaxy will never be the same. Above them, the last scourge ship vanished, relocated to whatever containment zone the observer had prepared. In its place hung the strange vessel, a silent sentinel promising both protection and judgment. Savax studied the tactical displays with professional appreciation. Not a single Lintari casualty since they arrived, not even collateral damage from weapons fire or ship destruction. Whatever they've become, they've perfected war to the point where it's indistinguishable from peace. That's what terrifies me, Tinari replied softly. What happens when peace becomes just another form of control? Judgment Day, the galaxy held its breath. For 7 days after the appearance of the observers, a strange quiet fell across council space. The scourge, a threat that had consumed worlds and terrorized civilizations for centuries, vanished entirely. Not a single ship, drone, or spore remained in known space. But this was not peace. It was anticipation. On Lintara, reconstruction had already begun. The crystalline cities that had been reduced to rubble were being rebuilt, not by conventional means but by swarms of microscopic machines that appeared from nowhere and reshaped matter according to some unseen plan. They worked tirelessly, requiring no direction, following designs that seemed to incorporate both original Lintari architecture and new elements that Kale identified as distinctly human in origin. They're not just rebuilding, he explained to Tinari as they watched a fallen spire reassemble itself. They're improving. See how the new crystal matrices are structured? They'll be 50 times stronger and can channel energy with near-perfect efficiency. Tinari nodded, but her concern was evident. They didn't ask permission. They didn't consult our engineers or cultural preservationists. They simply decided what was best for us. Would you prefer the Scourge had finished their work? Savax asked, approaching with a group of officers. The military commander had spent the past week reorganizing what remained of Lintari defense forces, largely a symbolic gesture, given the power differential they had witnessed. Of course not, Tinari replied. But there's something unsettling about being saved by an intelligence so far beyond our own that it treats us like children. Before anyone could respond, the air shimmered and Observer's geometric form appeared among them. Unlike before, when it had communicated through screens, its presence now had physical substance, though sensors indicated it wasn't truly matter as they understood it. The reconstruction of your primary habitats will be completed within 3 standard days, observer stated without preamble. Your population can return from underground shelters at that time. We are grateful for your assistance, Tinari said carefully, but my people are concerned about your long-term intentions. Will you be staying? Observer's form shifted, equations flowing across its surface. We have always been here. Physical presence is a temporary manifestation. Our attention, however, will remain until stability is ensured. And the council? Kale asked. What happens now? Judgment, observer replied simply. You should witness this. It concerns all species. With a gesture, observer created a view screen in the air before them, showing the council chamber. The scene was dramatically different from the chaos they had glimpsed earlier. The chamber was orderly, silent, with representatives from all major species seated in concentric rings around the central podium. There, the Supreme Executor floated, environment suit displaying a muted gray, the color of formal proceedings. The hour. Emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in progress, the Executor announced, voice steady despite the circumstances. Before us is the matter of the Compact of Sol and the invocation of the Guardian Protocol by the Lintari species. The view screen split to show multiple locations simultaneously. The Council Chamber, the reconstructing Lintari cities, the void spheres now positioned above every major Council world, and something new, an image of Earth itself, the legendary homeworld of humanity. Earth was not as historical records depicted it, a blue-green jewel orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Instead, it appeared transformed. The continents were recognizable in shape but gleamed with city structures that defied conventional architecture. The oceans pulsed with bioluminescence visible from orbit, and surrounding the planet was what could only be described as a lattice of light, threads of energy weaving in and out of reality, connecting Earth to points unknown. For 50,000 years, an observer spoke from the center of the council chamber. We maintained our isolation. We evolved along paths of our choosing. We watched. We remembered. Another observer, identical, yet somehow distinct, continued, from a position above Earth. The compact was simple. We contained threats beyond your capacity to manage. You respected our sovereignty and maintained the protocols we established. A third observer, manifesting in the Lintari bunker beside Tainari, finished. The compact was broken. The consequences must now be addressed. Throughout the galaxy, on every inhabited world, in every government center and population hub, the message was broadcast simultaneously. Not through conventional means, but directly into the minds of sentient beings. We are the guardians of Sol. Once we were human. Now we are what humanity chose to become. We withdrew not in defeat but in transcendence. We maintained the promise despite your betrayal. In the council chamber, the Supreme Executor floated forward. On behalf of the council, I must clarify that current leadership had no knowledge of this compact. The records were sealed or destroyed ages ago. Ignorance does not nullify responsibility, all observers replied in perfect unison. Governance requires continuity. Leadership demands accountability across generations. What do you want from us? The executor asked, voice finely. Betraying fear. A new compact, the observers replied. One that acknowledges reality rather than denial. One that embraces cooperation rather than isolation. Above Earth, the lattice of energy began to pulse more rapidly. Throughout council space, the void spheres expanded and contracted in perfect synchronization. On the reconstructing worlds, the microscopic machines worked faster, their purpose suddenly extending beyond mere rebuilding. We have contained the scourge in designated zones where they can exist without threatening other life. This is temporary. True resolution requires understanding and integration, not eternal separation. Integration? The Mr. Ambassador chittered in alarm. The scourge cannot be reasoned with. They consume all in their path. Your perspective is limited by your nature, the observers replied. The scourge are not malevolent. They are different. Their purpose in the cosmic order can be redirected, not eliminated. On countless screens across the galaxy, Images appeared showing the scourge contained within strange energy fields. But they were changing, their silicon structures being gradually reshaped, their collective intelligence communicating with observer entities through methods beyond conventional understanding. We do not destroy that which can be transformed, the observers continued. This principle applies to the Council as well. In the Lintari bunker, Tainari stepped forward. Does it apply to us as well? Will we also be transformed? The observer turned its geometric face toward her. All life transforms or perishes. This is cosmic law. We offer guidance, not compulsion. Choice remains sacred. What choice do we really have? Savax asked bitterly. Submit to your guidance or face extinction, like we nearly did before. For the first time, the observer's form showed something resembling emotion, a subtle shift in its equations, a momentary stillness. You misunderstand. We are not conquerors. We are not rulers. We are guardians of balance, of potential, of choice itself. Back in the council chamber, the Supreme Executor had recovered some composure. What are the terms of this new compact you propose? The primary observer expanded, its form filling the central space. First, acknowledgement. Humanity and its evolved forms exist. We will no longer be erased from history or consciousness. Second, cooperation. The threats facing sentient life transcend individual species. The scourge are but one example. Others approach from beyond the galactic rim. Third, evolution. All species must be free to choose their developmental path without interference, so long as that path does not negate the choices of others. Fourth, responsibility. Power requires restraint. Knowledge demands wisdom. Technology necessitates foresight. The council representatives murmured among themselves, some in fear, others in cautious hope. After 50,000 years of denial and willful ignorance regarding humanity's true nature, the galaxy was being forced to confront a reality far more complex than the comfortable narratives they had constructed. On Earth, something new was happening. The lattice of energy surrounding the planet began to coalesce, forming a shape visible from space, a hand, open in either greeting or command. We extend this offer once, the observers stated simultaneously across the galaxy. Accept the new compact or we will withdraw again. But this time, we will take with us what we have saved. Those species who choose to join us will be welcome. Those who refuse will face the coming darkness alone. In the silence that followed, Tainari made a decision. Stepping forward, her crystalline form glowing with internal light, she addressed the observer directly. The Lintari accept the compact, not out of fear but gratitude, not in submission but in recognition that evolution requires cooperation. We called for help, and you answered. Whatever you have become, you kept the promise when all others abandoned us. Across the galaxy, other species began to make their declarations. Some immediately accepted, particularly those who, like the Lintari, had faced extinction at the hands of threats the Council could not manage. Others hesitated, weighing ancient prejudices against new realities. A few, primarily elder species who remembered the original human empire, expressed defiance. In the council chamber, the Supreme Executor performed the formal gesture of acceptance, the opening of environmental seals, a symbolic exposure of vulnerability. The Galactic Council accepts the new compact with the understanding that sovereignty of individual member species remains intact. Sovereignty was never threatened, the observers replied. Only stagnation, only willful blindness to cosmic reality. Throughout council space, the void spheres began to contract, shrinking until they vanished entirely. The observer entities remained briefly, then faded from view, not disappearing but shifting to a level of existence just beyond normal perception. On Lintara, as Tainari and her people emerged from their bunkers to witness the miraculous reconstruction of their world, the final observer left them with a parting message. You called into the darkness not knowing what would answer. You feared extinction and found transcendence. Remember this. The universe rewards courage and punishes complacency. We were once as you are, afraid, limited, desperate. We chose to evolve beyond those limitations. That choice remains available to all sentient life. The observer's form dissolved into equations that briefly hung in the air before fading away. But something remained. A subtle presence just at the edge of perception, a watchfulness that was neither threatening nor intrusive. The Guardians had withdrawn from direct intervention, but they had not abandoned their watch. In the days that followed, information began to flow freely throughout the galaxy, knowledge that had been suppressed for millennia. The true history of humanity, their conflict with the early council, their choice to transcend physical and temporal limitations rather than engage in destructive warfare. The scourge containment protocols that had been established and then neglected. The warnings that had been ignored. Most importantly, records emerged of humanity's final message before their apparent withdrawal, a promise and a warning that now resonated with new meaning. We leave not in defeat, but in choice. We evolve beyond the constraints of flesh and time. We will watch, we will remember, and should innocents call for aid against forces beyond their understanding, we will answer. This is our promise. This is our purpose. This is our legacy. On Lintara, as the crystal cities gleamed once more in the light of binary stars, Tinari stood with Kale at the highest spire, looking toward the heavens. The young archivist had been appointed keeper of the new compact, responsible for ensuring future generations remembered the truth. "Do you think they're still watching?" Kyle asked, his crystalline form refracting starlight. Tinari nodded slowly. "I think they never stopped. We just stopped believing anyone was listening." Above them, a single star flickered briefly, not a natural stellar phenomenon, but a subtle acknowledgement from entities that had transcended the very concepts of space and time. Guardians who remembered, guardians who watched, guardians who answered when called. The Lintari had sought help and found something that terrified the galaxy, but also offered it salvation. The scourge had been contained, the council had been reformed, and humanity in its transcendent form had returned to a universe that had tried to forget them, not as conquerors, not as vengeful gods, but as what they had always promised to be. Guardians of a fragile cosmic balance, keepers of an ancient promise and testament to what any sentient species might become if they chose evolution over extinction, creation over destruction, and wisdom over fear.